The fall of Gigi Lai shook Hong Kong in a way no scripted drama ever could. One moment she was the jewel of TVB, the woman whose face could anchor an entire primetime lineup. The next, she was standing before cameras, delivering a retirement announcement so abrupt and so absolute that even veteran reporters were left speechless. Behind that calm statement lay a chain of events that most viewers never saw. The 2006 facial injury that exposed the station's crisis machinery from the inside, the catastrophic crash that left her sister permanently disabled, the business battles that erupted while her family was still in shock, and the quiet, powerful alliances inside TVB that she observed at point-blank range. These were the moments that pushed her to walk away from an empire she once helped build. This is Scandal Asia Files, uncovering the truth behind entertainment's most untouchable exits. Stay with the channel for more stories hidden behind Asia's brightest lights. The story of Gigi Lai begins in the crowded, fast-moving world of late 1980 seconds. Hong Kong, a time when TVB ruled every living room and young performers were funneled into a system that promised fame but demanded silence. Gigi entered this world at a young age to support her family, and from the start, she stood out. Her elegance, her soft but commanding presence on screen, and her ability to shift between vulnerable and fierce made her a natural fit for the era when TVB dramas were watched by millions across Asia. As she moved from small supporting parts to leading roles, she climbed through a tightly controlled ladder that offered opportunity, but also revealed the nature of the station's internal power network. Every TVB artist understood the rules. Producers had disproportionate authority, advertisers influenced creative decisions, and a small inner circle decided which actors would rise or stagnate. Gigi rose because she was talented, but also because she learned quickly how the system worked. Her proximity to decision-makers gave her a vantage point few artists ever gained. By the early 2000s, she was one of the most recognizable faces on screen, taking major roles in period dramas and contemporary series that anchored TVB's primetime lineup. But the higher she climbed, the more she saw how unstable the foundations of her success really were. The TVB empire was built on unquestioned loyalty, long contracts that favored the station, and a public image that presented the company as a spotless factory of stars. Behind that facade was a complex ecosystem of influential producers, wealthy sponsors, and advertising partners who could shift the fate of an entire cast with a single meeting. Rating battles shaped everything. Scripts were altered on short notice to accommodate sponsor interests. Public relations teams were deployed not only to protect the network, but also to protect individuals who held power within it. In this environment, a rising actress like Gigi would inevitably witness more than the average viewer could imagine, from internal conflicts to the ways certain stories were buried when they threatened the station's carefully maintained public face. Her first major confrontation with the darker side of the industry came in 2006. Gigi was involved in a serious car accident that left her face injured, a devastating event for anyone whose career depended on being on camera. Reports circulated quickly, but within hours, TVB's crisis management unit stepped in. They restricted photography, minimized press access, and issued carefully shaped statements that avoided specifics. The station had always been protective of its top stars, but the speed and intensity of the reaction surprised even veteran reporters. Some outlets noted how unusual it was for the network to block details so aggressively. For Gigi, the experience exposed the machinery that TVB rarely allowed actors to see. The coordinated links between the network, certain media groups, and private individuals who stood to lose financially if major productions stalled or leading actors appeared vulnerable. She understood then that accidents were not just accidents. They were threats to the system, and the system responded like a living organism, fighting off any sign of weakness. While recovering, she watched how people around her moved. Managers tightened schedules. Publicists asked her to smile through pain. Producers pressured her to return to work sooner than she was ready for. Beneath all that pressure was the unspoken truth of the TVB environment. Every successful actress owed part of her success to unseen alliances. Gigi was close enough to the upper tiers of the network to notice which decisions were made in official meeting rooms and which decisions were made in private dining rooms with corporate sponsors or longtime business patrons. She began to understand how much of the industry's order was maintained through informal agreements. Actors who displeased the wrong person lost roles without explanation. Scandals involving powerful insiders disappeared quickly. Stories about unfair treatment occasionally leaked to tabloids, but never gained traction because so many actors feared the repercussions. The system was designed to function smoothly only when nobody asked questions. Gigi's growing awareness of this environment changed how she viewed her own position. She had built her image on elegance and kindness, yet the world behind the camera felt increasingly chaotic. Younger actresses looked to her for guidance, and she saw their struggles. The long working hours, the verbal pressure from certain producers, and the fear that any disagreement could end their careers. At the same time, she observed how artists with strong corporate backing were protected even when they were involved in disputes. This imbalance was not new, but once she saw it clearly, it became impossible to ignore. Her accident in 2006 had placed her in the heart of the machine. She watched TVB craft narratives, massage facts, and control information with precision. She also noticed how the protectiveness shown toward her was driven not by pure concern, but by the financial stakes attached to her image. It was a calculated shield, not a compassionate one. As she returned to filming, the sense that she now knew too much lingered. Former TVB staff have since remarked that Gigi carried herself differently during this period. She was still professional and warm, but she no longer appeared sheltered from the inner politics. She had entered the room where reputations were negotiated and futures were traded like assets. The accident had given her a backstage pass to the mechanisms used to maintain the network's dominance in Hong Kong entertainment. She saw which news outlets TVB could call in favors from, how internal disagreements were buried, and how performers were expected to show gratitude by accepting whatever decisions the hierarchy imposed. All of this was standard practice in the industry, but few stars witnessed the full scope of it. Gigi did, and once she did, the distance between her personal values and the system around her grew wider, setting the stage for an even more devastating turning point that would change her life completely. The world around Gigi Lai collapsed in ways no actress, no matter how experienced, could ever prepare for. In 2007, just a year after her own accident, her younger sister Lam Kit Ying was involved in a catastrophic collision that left her with permanent brain damage. Overnight, Gigi became the emotional center of her family, the financial provider, and the protector of a woman who would never regain the life she once had. The public saw a grieving sister, but those closer to the situation understood that the tragedy opened the door to a wave of complications far beyond the hospital walls. The Lai family's business, which had supported them for years, suddenly became a target for opportunistic investors who believed the sisters were too vulnerable to resist pressure. Some attempted to influence decisions about the company's direction, arguing that the turmoil left it exposed. Others circled with offers that seemed generous at first glance but came loaded with expectations. While none of these attempts were illegal, they painted a clear picture of how ruthless Hong Kong's business environment could be when it sensed weakness. Gigi stepped in to protect the family, and by doing so, she found herself entangled in discussions with lawyers, accountants, and private negotiators who operated in a world very different from the sound stages of TVB. She was forced into meetings where people spoke in coded language about control, leverage, and restructuring. These were figures with long-standing relationships in the entertainment and commercial sectors, individuals whose influence extended quietly into TVB's circle of advertisers and financial partners. Some Hong Kong tabloids speculated that a few of these parties overlapped with the network's extended ecosystem, though these connections were never proven. What mattered more was the pattern she kept noticing. Power in Hong Kong rarely existed in isolation. Those with influence in one sector often had reach in several others. To protect her sister, she needed to stand firm against people who were used to getting their way. The situation became even more complex when TVB, sensing the strain on their top actress, tried to balance concern with professional demands. Gigi was too important to their ratings to lose, and the station had already invested heavily in promoting her as a core figure of their brand. This created friction behind the scenes. TVB wanted her on set. Her family needed her at home. She was grieving, exhausted, and increasingly wary of the people who now orbited her career. Colleagues later said she looked drained during this period, as if she was carrying something far heavier than the public understood. But despite the pressure, she fulfilled her obligations with the same grace and professionalism that had defined her entire career. As she navigated the new realities at home, she also began noticing the discomforting parallels between the entertainment world and the business battles unfolding around her family. In both spaces, decisions were influenced by relationships rather than merit. In both spaces, powerful insiders could shape narratives, silence disputes, or redirect outcomes. At TVB, rumors about internal favoritism and whisper networks were growing louder. Veteran actors complained privately about being pushed aside. Scripts were reassigned late in production. Contracts were extended without clear negotiation leverage. For years, Gigi had been protected by her star power. But once she began stepping back from work to care for her sister, she felt the system's impatience. The network needed reliability, and any actor who could not meet their demands risked losing ground. At the same time, she saw how certain artists with strong commercial or political backers were insulated from the consequences of conflict. Producers would quietly cover for them. Public relations teams would redirect blame. Entertainment reporters who tried to publish stories critical of these individuals found themselves discouraged by editors or told to wait for more solid evidence. Some insiders described this ecosystem as a web with multiple nodes: TVB management, wealthy advertisers, entertainment agencies, and high-profile patrons across Hong Kong. Everyone benefited when the system ran smoothly, and everyone had something to lose when scandals erupted. This was not corruption in the criminal sense, but an interconnected network of interests that rewarded silence and punished resistance. Gigi operated in the middle of this environment, absorbing everything. Her own rising discomfort was amplified by the way her sister's tragedy exposed how fragile her privacy and autonomy really were. Strangers approached the family with unsolicited advice. Business people tried to offer help that came with hidden intention. Journalists briefed by TVB tried to shape public narratives that would keep fans reassured and the network stable. Even well-meaning colleagues unintentionally reminded her how much the station depended on her return. Through all of this, she developed an acute awareness of the forces that shaped her public life. She had always known the entertainment industry was political, but now she saw how deeply those politics ran. Then came the issue of the family business. The Lai family operated a beauty and skincare company that had grown slowly but steadily for years. After the accident, its internal structure became a battleground. Investors who once treated the sisters warmly now viewed the business as an asset to negotiate over. Reports circulated that some stakeholders wanted to shift control, restructure ownership, or push the company toward a merger that the family did not fully support. All of this happened while Gigi was juggling TVB schedules and hospital visits. She became the defender of a business she never intended to lead but could not abandon. This exposed her to conversations about money, power, and influence that many actresses in her position never encountered. The more she fought to protect her sister's interests, the clearer it became that continuing her acting career would make her vulnerable. If she remained tied to TVB, she would be operating inside a system where external business pressure could quickly become internal leverage. If she reduced her acting commitments, TVB would not hold her place indefinitely. She was standing at an intersection where every path carried risk. Some Hong Kong media outlets later reported that this period forced her to confront an uncomfortable question. How much control did she truly have over her life, her career, and her image? At this moment, Gigi began distancing herself from the station's internal politics. She limited off-screen interactions. She declined events she would once have attended. She stopped entertaining speculative offers. Colleagues noticed the shift. She was still courteous, still thoughtful, but she no longer played the social game that kept actors in favor. It was not rebellion, it was retreat. A quiet, deliberate retreat from a system she no longer wanted to be a part of. The combination of personal tragedy, business pressure, and her exposure to TVB's deeper structure pushed her into a space where the cost of staying outweighed the reward. Another factor rarely discussed publicly, but widely whispered inside the industry, was how much Gigi had learned from the way TVB handled her 2006 accident. She had seen up close how the network could suppress or redirect information when necessary. She understood how far-reaching their influence was during crisis management. When she compared that experience to the delicate situation surrounding her sister's accident, she recognized patterns she could not ignore. The more she learned, the more she understood that the world she was part of carried risks far greater than long work hours or competitive casting. By the end of 2007, the emotional burden and her increasingly complex relationship with the entertainment industry pushed her toward a decision that no one in Hong Kong expected. While fans believed she would eventually recover and return stronger, Gigi was quietly preparing for an exit, not a break, not a hiatus. A permanent separation from a world she no longer felt safe in. When Gigi Lai walked into the press conference room in October 2008, everything about her presence suggested finality. There was no theatrical build-up, no emotional outburst, no dramatic farewell. She sat down, thanked the media for their support, and announced she was retiring from the entertainment industry to take care of her sister. That was it. The statement was short, controlled, and delivered with a calmness that left reporters stunned. Hong Kong's entertainment world had seen temporary withdrawals before, but nothing about this moment felt temporary. Colleagues watching the broadcast sensed immediately that she was not taking a break. She was closing a door, and everyone familiar with TVB's internal dynamics understood that people rarely close doors that firmly, unless they had powerful reasons. The starkness of her departure raised questions almost immediately. Why would one of TVB's top actresses, whose popularity guaranteed primetime ratings, walk away at the height of her career? Why would she decline comeback invitations from the station even in the aftermath of her sister's tragedy, when TVB publicly offered support and understanding? And why did her exit feel so absolute? Over time, a clearer picture emerged. Gigi had reached a point where the information she held about the industry, the pressures tied to her family's business situation, and the complicated alliances she had witnessed inside TVB made staying far more uncomfortable than leaving. In the weeks following her announcement, insiders whispered that she had seen too many internal disputes between senior producers, advertisers, and business stakeholders who shaped TVB's direction. These disputes were not crimes, but they revealed how fragile the balance of power truly was. When the wrong people clashed, entire production schedules shifted. When the right sponsors applied pressure, artists were replaced overnight. Gigi had been placed close to these negotiations for years, often because her popularity made her a central asset in high-profile dramas. The more she witnessed, the more she understood how interconnected TVB was with sectors beyond entertainment. Retail giants, property families, politically active donors, and private companies that relied on the station's massive influence. In this environment, knowledge was both a privilege and a threat. Rumors circulated that she had been advised privately to step back from the spotlight while managing her family's business transition. These claims were never corroborated, but they aligned with the tone of her exit. People who saw her at the time said she looked relieved, not conflicted, as if she had already accepted that the life she built inside TVB had reached its limit. The relentless schedules, the public scrutiny, the competitive casting environment, and the unseen politics around her had accumulated to a point where silence and distance felt like safety. Her marriage to businessman Ma Ting-kung in 2008 marked a turning point. His financial strength, business stability, and private lifestyle created a protective barrier around her that the entertainment industry could not penetrate. With this foundation, she no longer needed to rely on TVB's hierarchy or the unpredictable currents of Hong Kong showbiz. The timing fueled speculation that her retreat from the industry was also a retreat from a network of obligations she had never wanted, but had been forced to manage as her profile grew. Those close to her insisted that the marriage was built on genuine affection, and nothing suggests otherwise. But the partnership undeniably gave her the freedom to protect her family without worrying about external leverage. After her departure, TVB entered a period of significant turbulence that made her earlier concerns appear justified. Between 2010 and 2015, veteran actors publicly criticized the station for long contracts and heavy workloads. Younger performers described wage stagnation and limited upward mobility. Several high-profile resignations exposed deep dissatisfaction with internal politics. Audiences dwindled as new competitors entered the market. Reports surfaced about management conflicts that reshaped casting decisions and programming direction. Looking back, many fans began interpreting Gigi's exit not simply as a personal choice, but as a protective move made by someone who sensed the ground shifting long before the cracks became visible. Meanwhile, Gigi dedicated herself to rebuilding her family's life. She took full control of the beauty business, transforming it into a strong luxury brand through a combination of disciplined management and careful public repositioning. She appeared in charity events occasionally, always with a composed demeanor that contrasted sharply with the frantic energy she once navigated in the entertainment world. Her sister remained at the center of her life, and that devotion shaped everything she pursued. She became an example of a public figure who walked away not in defeat, but in deliberate pursuit of peace. What made her disappearance so striking was not just that she left. It was the completeness of her exit. Gigi Lai never returned for a cameo, a reunion special, or even a nostalgia project, despite repeated attempts from TVB and offers from mainland Chinese studios. She ignored the comeback trend that swept through Hong Kong's entertainment scene in the 2010 seconds, when many retired stars briefly returned for lucrative roles. Her silence, her refusal to re-engage, and her ability to stay invisible in an industry that thrives on visibility created a legend around her departure. Fans still refer to her as the actress who left because she knew too much, not because she lost interest. In interviews years later, when she occasionally touched on her past, she chose her words carefully. She emphasized gratitude for her career, respect for her colleagues, and love for her fans. But she never elaborated on the internal environment she once witnessed. She never mentioned the pressures, the politics, or the disputes that shaped her final years. That silence only deepened the belief that she had seen things she preferred to leave behind permanently. Her story became a cautionary tale within the Hong Kong entertainment community. It demonstrated how an actress at the peak of her career could feel trapped by the very system that made her famous. It showed how personal tragedy could collide with industry, politics, and reveal the extent to which power in Hong Kong intertwined across business, media, and public perception. Above all, it showed that escaping such a system required not only courage, but also extraordinary timing. Today, Gigi Lai stands as a rare figure in Asian entertainment. Someone who left on her own terms, who shielded her family from the forces that once governed her life, and who chose silence not as surrender, but as protection. Her disappearance from TVB remains one of the most compelling mysteries of Hong Kong showbiz. People continue to debate what she truly saw, what she truly knew, and what convinced her that walking away forever was the only safe path. Gigi Lai's disappearance from TVB was not a retreat, but a calculated escape from a world she understood too well. The internal politics, the unspoken alliances, the pressure surrounding her family, and the knowledge she gained during her final years formed a burden no actor should have to carry. She chose silence, stability, and safety over fame, and in doing so, created one of Hong Kong's most enduring mysteries. For more investigations into the powerful forces shaping Asia's entertainment world, subscribe to Scandal Asia Files and uncover the stories that were never meant to be public.